Hi guys, this is Sharon ShareAlike. On this episode of Sharon's Secrets, we're talking about fringe. And fringe is really easy to make, and I just wanted to show you some different examples of some fringe that you can make for like your dance costumes. There's nothing better than fringe on a dance costume, because if you're not a very good dancer, you just move around a little bit and the fringe like takes over for you. This type of fringe is, I call this like curly Q fringe. See how it's got like a spiral look to it? And this you just cut out of circles. So what you do is you take your fabric like this and you just cut circles out of it. And then once you get your circles done, then you just spin them around and continue to cut like this until you're all the way done with your circle. And then I just take each piece and I sew it on to the sleeve. And I'll show you how to do that over at the machine shortly, alright? Okay, for these curly Q fringes, you just sew them on with a zigzag. Like if this was a sleeve pattern piece, and say this is the part that's down by your wrist, then I just lift up the foot and slide one of these underneath, and it's in about the center of it. You don't have to be perfect with it. And then I just start doing a zigzag stitch. I'm going to go forward, back a little bit, and then start sewing. I'm using these different color fabrics so that you can see kind of what I'm doing. But then I just put the next one on, and then I just keep right on going. Add the next one. And you just keep going and keep going. And then once you get done with your row, then you would just let those hang down, and then you just start on a new row right here. And you would just do it the same again. Just put a piece on and sew in the center. And I usually put maybe about an inch or so in between, and you could go all the way up until you have the complete sleeve done. Another type of fringe is just like a straight fringe. And this moves really nice. And I make all of these fringes out of 4-way stretch spandex, and that way they can stretch even after they're sewn on. If you used a fabric that doesn't stretch, then it might not fit very well. The way that you do this fringe is kind of neat. You just lay out your pieces. I think I made this about, looks like I cut it about 14 inches. So I'm going to cut out a piece of fabric that's 14 inches wide, and then I'm going to go along with my knife and just cut zigzags back and forth and back and forth. And as you can see, I just keep going all the way across the fabric. And then once you get all your zigzags cut, you can just pull it apart, and then you have 2 pieces of fringe. That just gets sewn on just like this with the zigzag stitch. And then once you get one row sewn on, then you just start back up and you just sew another row on. Now once again, I'm using the wrong color thread because I want you to be able to see better. But I would go up about an inch and then sew the next one on. One little trick I learned is when you get to the very top, if you want to have it look really nice and finished, you can sew the last one on upside down like this. I have my scissors on a piece of elastic because I always lost them. So once you get that sewn on with the zigzag, now remember that was on the top one, then you can take and you could flip it down and you can't see the stitch. And if you want, you can go along with a finished stitch too. You just turn it down, and most of you have a stretch stitch on your machine. I don't know if you can see this very good, but you see how that says SS right there? That's a stretch stitch. So you want to set your machine on just your straight stitch and then set it on the SS. And what that does is that does 2 stitches forward and 1 stitch back, and it just keeps doing that, and that way it has some give to it. So then I would sew this one with that stretch stitch. And you won't really be able to tell by watching it, but it's doing 2 forward and 1 back every time. And if you did this with black thread, then you wouldn't be able to see the stitch at all, and it would just be finished really nicely. But see how good that looks for like the final look? And it has some stretch to it because we use that stretch stitch. And then what I usually do is go along with E6000 and I put stones on that last one, and that way you can't see it at all. Now here's a fringe that I like. It's kind of very whimsical looking. It's a little bit like the curlicue fringe, but it kind of flows a little more. It has kind of an angelic look. And this fringe was a little bit harder to figure out, but here's a pattern to show you how I cut this fringe out. You have to be a little bit careful the way that you cut the shape that you cut it in. But once you get the hang of it, it's pretty easy. And then as I cut this out, you're gonna see then when I hold it up, it has like this whimsical like curlicue look. So that's a really fun fringe too to work with. And then just to give you some more ideas, you can also cut fringe out of like patterned fabrics, and that gives you an interesting look too. I used different scraps on this one. I used white fabric, and I also had a patterned fabric that I used. But once you get it cut into little strips, then you can't really even tell that it had a pattern on it. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed today's episode of Sharon Secrets. If this helped you out, please like and share. And I hope that you get to make some of your own dance costumes and get to put some fringe on some things, because it's a lot of fun. All right, I'll see you soon. Bye, guys.